We're going to let people rejoin. It's so not fair when it doesn't work properly. It's not very nice. Okay, people are coming back in. They found the new one. Can you hear me? Talkity talk, talk, talk. Let me know. No video. Oh my gosh. Oh, you have audio, but no video. That's just fantastic. Okay, well, pretend it's a podcast. Is that all right? If you can hear me, that's way better, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Just sound is okay. I was having a bad hair day anyways, so you don't need to see me. All right, so if you can hear me, then we're all good. I will continue. If video pops up, but you know, since I don't know. All right, excellent. We are going to talk, or I'm going to talk. You're going to ask your questions. I don't have to worry about looking at the camera because you can't see me, so that's actually a little bit easier. Okay, a couple of things before we dive into the hard stuff. Next Tuesday, March 22nd, the April classes at FDSA and the April workshops at FDSA will be available to purchase. And I want to just quickly tell you what I have. I know, isn't the weird background, image so funny? It was stars at one time, but now it's these funny pink and purple blobs. Anyways, so I'm teaching one class in the April term. It is my agility handler mechanics class, and it is completely dogless. It's where I break down those micro skills of handling, introduce you to basic handling techniques, introduce some really solid core handling skills so that when we do add the dog in there into the class following, it's really, really easy. I just finished up this 3-class series. It's the dogless class and then 2 levels of with the dog, and the outcome was brilliant. I'm really, really pleased with the handlers that kind of did, especially the handlers that I got to see do gold at each level. Huge, massive improvements, and I'm really, really pleased with how that whole class turned out. So that will open for registration next Tuesday. The other thing that it's new, so I didn't really even know about it until recently, but we are resurrecting the How to Handle Errors and Agility workshop. So I think I did that originally in October 2019. So I've looked at the slides. I'm going to update those slides. I'm going to re-record. And so it's going to be generally the same material, but a completely different recording. And it's going to be a workshop as well. So with the working spots, even if you took it before, maybe you audited it before, you might want to get a working spot this time. Or if you had a working spot last time, it'll be a new presentation at least. So how to handle errors and agility will also open next Tuesday. So those are the things happening next Tuesday. I'll remind you again next Monday as well. But if you have questions about either of those, especially if you're interested in a working spot, it's way better to email me or message me kind of now rather than the night before. Okay. Yes. Yeah, Sheila, sorry. There will be no Torchy. He's not even in the room with me because we're working through some things. So, okay. And then a couple of comments about the dogless class being awesome and this series being spot on. So thank you guys for chiming in. The errors workshop, it's just how I respond to errors, so training those protocols, getting yourself really good and consistent with how to react in the moment and later on, and changing things. So, okay, that's the fun stuff. Now we're going to talk about, it's going to be hard. So the question was kind of like, how do you know when to throw in the towel? How do you know when to just go, you know what, this sport, this isn't working. This isn't turning out. It's just not going well. So we need to quit. So how do we determine that? Because I think it's hard. There's just so many thoughts I have on it. And so my plan is to just kind of go over briefly how I personally feel about it, how I've personally made decisions in the past, how I'm still making those decisions currently for Shrek. And then I'm going to go through your questions and we're going to unpack some of these things. And hopefully those of you that submitted a question or a theoretical or even your own personal kind of piece of your story, you're here to talk about it with us. And I also thank everyone for being vulnerable and putting that piece of your story out there. So remember that in your comments, that everyone's kind of on their own space with this, and there's no one right answer. A lot of it does have to, and we're going to talk about that first, a lot of it is going to come down to your goals as a competitor, your expectations as a competitor, what you're willing to kind of put on your dog, the responsibilities for sport. And that's not for anyone to decide for you or to even judge of you. We're all doing the best we can. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal factors and how I would go about deciding things. And then we're going to just unpack everything. Ask questions, comments. I will try to keep this around an hour. And so we're going to try and just kind of go for it. The first thing I want to split apart is training versus competing. I think all dogs, they deserve training as part of their well-being. Training doesn't have to be sport training, but it can be. If I quit agility today, my dogs would not necessarily miss the agility. I don't think that they're going to bed saying, "Oh, I didn't get to do agility." I think they would be like, "Oh, I didn't get to do any training. I didn't get to have that moment, those moments with Megan, blah, blah, blah." I think they would miss the training. So regardless of whether I'm competing or whatever sport I'm pursuing, my dogs will get trained. Okay, competing is not necessary for your dog to have a fulfilling life. Competing is not for dogs. Competing in dog sports is for people. We just happen to find a sport where we could compete with our dog instead of another human teammate, because we would all prefer to work with our dogs than another person, myself included. I'm a very competitive person. I'm not that great at team sports. So personally, I feel like competition is for you. It's not for your dog. So my goal is that competing doesn't make my dog's life worse. It doesn't take away anything from their well-being, from their whole wellness. So that means you can decide what your factors are, but I kind of look for, does my dog like become ill after dog shows or during dog shows? I've had clients that their animals have chronic diarrhea from being at a show all day. That's not something I would go with. If it's 100%, my dog was fine except for days at trials, days competing, then it would be very clear to me that competition is putting this dog through something that they don't need to be going through. And that would be like a deal breaker for me if I couldn't help them. I would weigh, and we're going to get into this, that example. I might weigh, like, can I just medicate and help them with their bowel movements on days? And if that works, then the dog's enjoying agility, except for what it does to their tummy. That might be an acceptable thing. That's not for me to decide for you, and it's not for you to decide for me. So it's just kind of something there. You also have to decide, when we're talking about, does competition make the dog's life worse? Is there a little bit of chronic pain? Is there, are they, maybe as they're aging, they're still really enjoying it, but they're going to be sore the next day? For some dogs, it would be just fine. I can definitely say that I could be sore the next day after doing something that I really, really enjoyed, and it would totally be worth it. The dogs can't tell us if it would be worth it or not. So we just have to use our best judgment. I don't feel like anyone is out there making their dogs compete, intentionally trying to hurt them. So keep that in mind too. But it's based on your philosophy and how you read your dog's body language and how you want your dog's life to look like. And also how your goals and how you want agility to look like. Okay, because we're also, at a lot of these examples, we're probably going to get into the amount of time and money and resources you have to spend on getting your dog comfortable with that sport. Okay, so all of this matters because your experience and all of this matters too. So if in this you are no longer enjoying the process, that's plenty enough reason to quit. Even if you think if the dog deserves your time, or if you think the dog deserves your effort, if you're not enjoying it, knock it off. Just move on to something else. It's fine. Because if you're not enjoying it, it's not going to be worth it, especially when competition is involved, because we just said competition is not for the dogs. They don't care. They'd pretty much prefer to just do the things in the backyard and get all the cookies, right? No dog is filling out the entry forms themselves. Don't come at me with, oh, my dog loves the crowds. Yeah, there are those dogs, but take them to a park where they can be doted on somewhere else. Like, you can get that thing, that feeling, in places other than competition. Yeah, this is a great comment. When I was crying in my car between turns in class, I knew it was time for a break. 100%. 100%. Been there, done that, crying in the middle of seminars, knowing I don't know what I'm going to do. So are you enjoying it? Can you adjust your expectations? So when we're going through these scenarios and these questions, and if you're thinking that, oh my gosh, that sounds just like my own experience, think, can you adjust your expectations? Personally, I cannot. This is maybe going to sound uptight, or I don't know it, but I'm going to say it anyways. My version of competing in agility is competing at really high levels. I only want to compete with a dog that wants to be there as badly as I do. Or maybe not quite as badly as I do, but they're willing to humor me in that, and that they can give as much as I can give. And I want to be able to push for winning. And I want that kind of all or nothing thing. That's how I want to do agility. It's not exciting for me to do agility with a dog that's a little bit distracted. It's not exciting for me to do agility that will only ever be at a local level. It doesn't fulfill what I get from competing. Doesn't mean I don't do it. Doesn't mean I won't do it. But it's not enough for me, which is essentially why Shock, who you guys see in all of my demo videos, she's my most talented dog I've ever owned. Maybe I will ever own. I don't know, but she's fantastic. But her noise sensitivity keeps her from competing at the levels that I would like to compete at. So I don't compete with her much at all because there's an end. There's a limit to it. I could enter her in outdoor competitions. I could probably compete 10 or 15 times a year, but that would be it. So for me, I'd rather not spend the money because it ends there, because it's not making her life better to compete. So I don't. She trains agility all the time. She loves it. I love it with her. I love running her. But because I know that I won't be able to get the ultimate high competing with her, I don't compete at all because my expectations are not adjustable. Okay. That's my personal feeling. I also don't go to dog shows for like any social aspect. That's very low on my list, which of course I socialize, don't mishear me, but I don't go to socialize, which is maybe why I'm having an easier time pandemic wise, not being able to compete. So if a big part of competition for me was social, of course I could probably much more easily adjust my expectations for what I want my dog to be able to do in the ring, because I can get what I'm looking for outside of the ring. That doesn't exist for me. So everyone has to kind of look at their own story, their own what's happening around them, and go from there. That was my vulnerable, uncomfortable share for today, because I'm madly competitive. No one wants, I mean, yeah, team sports, not okay with me because I'm too competitive. Okay. So when you make the decision, or if you make the decision that enough is enough, is it disappointing? Absolutely. Are you allowed to be disappointed? Absolutely. Do you need to place blame on anyone? No, it just happens. It's okay. It's okay. Just like you don't get along with every teacher you have or every doctor you have, or right, you're not always going to click on that same level with every animal you train. It's a little bit along the lines of rehoming dogs too. Like, that's okay with me, because we're not here to judge someone else's story. So everything is about your version of agility or your version of whatever sport that you're doing, and if it fits in your life or not. Okay. So it is disappointing, but it does not make you a failure if it didn't work out. And if it does, I don't know why any of you are listening to me, because I have failed massively if we are categorizing not getting our dogs into the competition ring as failure. Right? I mean, some of you may not even know that I have dogs. Like, some of you only know me because I have Shrek. And it's always like so shocking to me that I've been doing agility long enough that some of you don't know that I had Shelties before. Like, that blows my mind. But so anyways, I'm going to grab the comments so I don't start just yabbering on about myself. It is so important to honor oneself and one's dog, and the dogs do not care about competition in itself, like you said with Shock. Absolutely. So it just makes her life better. I think she probably does more agility being my demo dog rather than competing. Elise says 100% share those feelings about competing. Huge reason I am grateful to loner dogs who can fill that niche for me. 100%. Like, that's actually, I had forgotten about that. I should just steal someone's dog. Oh, right. I got a puppy. I stole someone's puppy instead. That's right. Okay. I also, just before we go into the questions that you all posted, because I think they're brilliant and I want to get into those, the last thing that I want to kind of go over is maybe some cultural fog surrounding this. And that Facebook user telling me to steal your dog. I don't know who you are, because Restream doesn't tell me who you are. Just send them to me, it's fine. I think there's cultural fog surrounding that agility is fun no matter what. And this is a little bit about how agility was marketed in the beginning, because all there was like confirmation and competitive obedience. So agility really was like super freaking fun no matter what. But that's not the case. Today's version of agility is not a halftime show at a horse event where the dogs are running around and they don't have to go very fast and the courses aren't very complicated. Agility today is pretty complex, and we're asking a lot more of the dogs than we used to be. So I do not feel like agility itself is inherently fun. We make it fun through good training and hopefully positive reinforcement based training. Okay, so it's just, agility can be fun, but it's not fun just because it's agility. You can make it fun. Hopefully you're having a good time at it. Remember, if you're not having a good time, why are you doing it? Okay? Why are you paying to do it if you're not having any fun? Like, that's really the answer. Agility is not for everyone. I know, again, this is another like marketing thing around agility. Oh, any dog can do agility. Not necessarily. That, I mean, it's a little bit silly to expect every dog to be able to do this really active and where there's so many different elements, the climbing and the jumping and the movements. It's not reasonable to expect it to work for every dog, especially competition, right? It's not reasonable. So those are the things that I feel like is just a culture thing about agility. Maybe it helps you, maybe it doesn't. All right. So again, thank you guys for your comments and sharing your stories. And so we're going to dive in. Comment along. I'm just going to read the whole comment and reply or answer any question, and we'll see what happens. Kristen says, I chose to quit agility with Titan when I realized that I was not enjoying it. Boom. The human wasn't enjoying it. Which also made me wonder how much he was truly enjoying it. Now, after having tried to do some obedience training, I'm finding myself in a similar place, although due to some anxiety behaviors he has recently developed that I need to place my focus on. My relationship with him is far more valuable to me than any training or sport. His relationship with me is also more important than any training or sport. 100%. Because the sport, so what I'm kind of reading into is that the training either revealed or produced, probably revealed some underlying anxiety behaviors, and now that needs to be priority because the anxiety behaviors produce an unhealthy dog, basically, and unhealthy dogs aren't going to be able to excel at sports, not in maybe the way that you want. Okay, so that would absolutely come down to the handler's goals and expectations, and if they're willing to put the dog through that when there's some obvious anxiety going on. All right, second comment, Tanya says, I feel like these Monday musings are a narrative on my life. Which I just want to point out that means you are not alone. And so, and the number of comments that I got on both of these threads should be, I don't know, humbling or reassuring that we have basically all gone through some version of this or are currently going through some version of this, which is why I'm talking about it. I'm going through it 2 dogs in a row. And so, and I would like to think that I'm a good trainer, right? Like I feel like I'm a pretty good at what I do. So it's not just train better sometimes. Sometimes it's really just trying to put a round peg in a square hole. It would be great to hear your thoughts on the gradients between throwing all resources at fixing things and quitting. Okay, so I'm going to stick, that's going to be completely up to the individual, right? I think a little bit of this is that when I put all of my time and effort and resources into agility, it's too much pressure for Shrek, and I start to see the disconnect happen more. If I when I started putting just a little bit more effort into obedience training, so that there was something that it was training, so I enjoyed it. It was training, so he enjoyed it, but I have zero intention of doing competitive obedience because that's not what fuels me. It helps my agility because I can put as much pressure as I want on the obedience training, and that relieves a little bit of the pressure on the agility training. And I can use like the Finzi team titles to keep my obedience on track, so I feel like I'm accomplishing something in obedience, but that keeps me from quitting training agility. So perhaps to include experiences with taking a break. So that's a little bit kind of what I was saying, is cross training and dipping my toes in something else kind of helped, because it kept me from putting all of my energy into something that might not work out. And then that crash might be harder to take if you don't have something else back on the back burner. How to assess whether the break needs to be just for the trialing piece or all of agility. So I would take a break from the thing that is causing discomfort or I don't know how to like label it. So what's causing the problem? If training is causing the problem, then maybe we take a break from training. If competition is causing the problem, we take a break from competition. Maybe you try training in some other sport if you want to. Like I said, I have zero interest in like all of the other sports. Did the obedience training because that's good. That's training that I can get into because I'm curious about it. But no interest in competing in anything other than agility. So if you have interests and want to try some other sports, I would do that. Yeah, there's a reason we're putting foundations on 3 or 4 different sports on this puppy. Yeah. Used agility as a break from his real sport. Another comment says, I quit agility and started training Schutzen with my German Shepherd. Now we're ready to go back to agility. Yeah, exactly. Right. If this last comment, getting stressed, sometimes he runs, sometimes he shuts down, no one's having a good time. Yeah, it's time to think about something, right? Another comment, I like to compete at a high level, but I'm not attached to any one sport over another. So I have my favorite sports, but I will push hard at whatever my dogs prefer. You're kind of like the perfect dog owner, right? Because you can be flexible. And that you can have a good time at whatever sport you're playing. That's really cool. Sometimes I wish that was me, but it's not. And then a follow-up question, does this mean we should all be cross-training to see what fits? I think we should be cross-training just to have the benefits of it. I'm not saying that you should jump sports unless you want to. If you try all the sports and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this sport and so does my dog, boom, you've got this perfect thing. But I'm not going to do that. But if you do, that's super. Right? So there's not, so yes, but no. Or both. Or I don't know. um, all right, so back to the thread posts. Why is my dog out of her mind excited when she sees the agility backpack come out, but then disconnects and sniffs in the ring once it's finally her turn? The ride in the car does not appear to be inherently rewarding. So this is, I think, goes back to the very beginning of this talk where dogs really love training. Dogs then are not so great at the harder stuff. So there could, because I get that all the time. The dogs are super excited when they see the reinforcers, the predictors of reinforcers, the backpack and things like that. And then they get there and they're like, oh yeah, but there's all this other stuff to deal with. I'm trying to think of a human example. It's probably a little bit like me at going to a big event where I'm like so excited to go to the nationals. And then I remember, oh yeah, there's all these people here, which sounds ridiculous. I know, but I'm really not that much of an extrovert. It's actually quite difficult for me to be lively in these big crowds. Takes a lot out of me. So maybe it's something like that. Like the act of doing it is great fun, but there's still a lot of stuff to deal with. Just something can be really, really hard and fun at the same time. So that's kind of what I get out of that. Okay, next comment. Tessa says, this one hits home. I'm sorry, Tessa. I'm really sorry. I have a dog that jumps and barks and whines to go play agility at home and in class, but is such a scaredy cat that I don't know if I'll ever be able to trial. She's been in training classes, going to shows. It's not a socialization issue, just a temperament one. Yeah, it's gonna be a trial and error sort of thing to see if you can train enough to overcome that. And if you want to train enough to overcome that, it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you want to just train and do agility at home with her and not go there to compete. Not if that doesn't bring you some joy. The question that returns to my mind is always, if I spend X amount of time fixing this issue, will it be a recurring problem? It might be. I can't tell you a happy ending story. I've been working on Shrek. Had Shrek since he was 12 weeks old, and he did his first competition at like 18, 19 months old. And since then, it's been kind of a trial and error, hit or miss, up and down, recurring issues sort of thing. So from my perspective, where I look at it is that because I'm not going to get rid of Shrek, right? I'm not going to put him in a home where I'm not going to put him somewhere else. He's going to continue to live with me forever. So I'm going to continue training him as if he's competing tomorrow. I'm going to keep going at it. And if that means he debuts again when he's 7 or when he's 9 or when he's 13 or when he's 17, his family lives to be very, very old. It doesn't matter to me, because if I choose to compete with him, it will be because he tells me he wants to be there. And if he doesn't, it's fine. I'll get another dog eventually, get another dog after that. He's still going to be trained as if he is competing. So yeah, but you're okay to change. I could also change my mind. I could be like, I'm not training any more agility with you because this is pointless. We'll just play fetch. It's fine. Like, it's okay. Misty responds to Tessa and says, it's utterly heartbreaking. I'm in the exact same situation. My dog's issue is environmental fear, and it's just so hard to overcome. She loves to work, loves agility, can be incredible when she is settled, and a total blast around the state. Yeah, it sucks. I'm with you. It goes back to that competing isn't for every individual. It's not for every person. It's not for every dog. If there is some other sport, like if competition is important to you, then I would reach out to other sports and see if there's something that can fit with the dog's personality. If competition isn't, then I would enjoy agility in class and in home environments, and get a new dog if you can. When you can, if you want to. It's disappointing. Be disappointed. I'm just catching up on the comments. Lots of people just agreeing with everything and feeling familiar. Agility hits the middle of a Venn diagram for certain personalities who enjoy dog training. I love training, but I also personally need the kind of adrenaline-fueled competition that agility provides. And I think it's maybe too easy to pretend those two things are one and the same without recognizing that they are sometimes meeting different human needs. Yeah. Yeah, I can get on board with that. And then a question from Facebook. Can people share when they knew it was time to retire their dogs? Yeah, everyone just can share that because it's going to be different, a little bit different for everyone. Personally, I've only ever gotten to retire one dog purposefully because I've had crummy things happen with the others. My very first dog, when I was 7 years old, he broke his leg when he was 3, shattered it, and so he was retired at 3 years old. The next one was the only dog I have ever retired normally, just he aged out of it, and it was when his cataract, he was 12 or 13 years old, his cataracts were keeping him from jumping safely, and even though he still wanted to, he couldn't navigate the jumps anymore. I probably could have continued in like NADAC and done hoopers and tunnelers and things, but I didn't need to. He could do that in the backyard, so we retired. The next Sheltie, he retired really young at like 7 or 8 because he started having neurological symptoms and turned out he had a brain tumor. He lived for quite a long time, but he couldn't do agility because he was stuck turning left all the time. Then I guess Smack is next. Smack, he would probably still be competing if COVID hadn't happened. His last trial was last January, just before lockdown, and I had actually been entering him in trials still, and he'll be 13 next week. So he got retired, and he won't come back now because he's so out of shape. But yeah, so COVID retired him. Shock, we just talked about, basically retired from competition because of the noise sensitivity. And then who knows if Shrek is actually retired or not. So people can also answer that about retiring the dogs. Leah has contributed because this was her topic suggestion. She says, easily the hardest part of agility for me so far has been how I didn't know what I was going to have when we got to class. So kind of dealing with 2 different dogs, like one that's really raring to go, or having melty, head down, leaving to sniff. So that kind of led to rituals and routines to make sure she was her best self. when it got to the point that I realized she wasn't inherently enjoying it and that I had to do all this stuff to make it worthwhile to her, that's when I decided to step away. I'm willing to do the work to build drive and make it fun for both of us, but it felt like I was pouring so much of my time and effort into that and only getting mediocre performance. I think it sounds like you did everything right. You put in the time and the effort that you were willing to spend on it, and it still didn't work out. The part I still struggle with is whether or not it was me problem or a Gimlet problem. Is that who she is, or am I just a crappy trainer? Oof, yeah. This, it actually doesn't matter. Even if you, like, one, I think it's not necessary to like label good trainer, bad trainer. I just don't think it matters. Because you still exhausted your resources. So even if you're at this level, you can't see me, but if you're at a low level of training and you put in every resource and thought you did everything that you're capable of doing that day, in that moment, as the trainer you are that day, that's good enough. It's okay. Like, it's fine. I keep saying that, so I hope that's, like, I hope the takeaway that everyone gets is it's okay. It's fine. And this is coming from someone who really, like, I had to deal with this a lot. I went to every single fantastic trainer that I know going, it must be something I'm doing. Help me be better. And it's sometimes there is no do better. Sometimes quitting is the best we can do. Comment in the chat says, do your best until you know better, then do better. Exactly. So it's okay. You shouldn't have to change, like you're saying, you're not very loud or emotive or fun in your own life, and my training isn't either, and I can see how my seriousness could make it boring. Could be. You could also change everything about your training style and it still be the same. It's up to you. If you don't want to make those changes, you don't want to try and make those changes, it's okay. Like, I feel like a lot of this is trying to live up to someone else's expectations. I asked myself forever if I had caused T's issues with agility, and Megan keeps pointing out that I didn't create how sensitive she is to me. Exactly. We don't actually create the dog's personalities. We don't. We can do our best. We can do everything we can with training and providing things to make their lives great, but we don't actually change who they are. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And it's fine. It sucks. It's disappointing. It's terrible. I don't like it. It's okay though. So you also say, I feel so strongly about agility that I felt like I put too much pressure on her. So I feel like fine. So what if you did? So this comes back to, would you enjoy the type of agility she would be willing to give you if you hadn't put pressure on her? So what if you were like, I don't care about agility? Would you even enjoy that version of agility? Because I wouldn't. I would not enjoy the version of agility that's like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. This is fine. For one, I couldn't fake that anyways. And two, I wouldn't enjoy it. Would you? Lizzie asked a great question. How do you gauge whether the dog is responding to the handler's emotional state and stress level in competition, or as a fundamental part of the problem, and what do you think about it? Okay, so the dog showing some discomfort or stress and agility in response to the handler's stress. I think this happens quite a lot. One way to test is to hand the dog over to someone else. Let them run it. And I think this is kind of what Gully and I were just talking about with Tonks, and a little bit about what probably what I also experienced with Shrek, is that it's the dog's response to us is probably a huge part of it. And that just, I think that's got to be a factor that we look for in the dogs that we're choosing. Or being open to changing how we go about things. Probably where a huge amount of mindset training comes in. Being able to notice that your emotions are impacting those around you and seeing if you can reroute some of those feelings. I feel like we're not gonna finish even the first page of comments. So the first test is, like I said, I would hand the dog over to someone else. But I only do that if I can handle being proven that I'm the problem. And it's a tough one. And then I would do the work. I would do the mindset work. I would get a mentor or a professional or someone, a sports psychiatrist, or there are plenty of mindset coaches in the dog sport world now. And I have one. So that's probably where I would start with a lot of these dogs, to be honest, to be fair. Because Emily wants to talk about coming back to agility after your prior dog was not suited for it, and the mental baggage that we carry. I don't know what mental baggage you're talking about, Emily. I don't know that. Yeah, this is real. And then Margaret follows up with, or the mental baggage with the dog you're contemplating retiring. So it's there on the mental part of it. I think we have to own the things that we can control and the things that we cannot control. Okay. So we cannot control every detail of our dog's personality. We cannot control the competition environment. We can control our reactions to when it happens. We can control how we react. We can control how we feel. We can control the how we label things. And did this happen to you? Or is this something that you caused? Things like that. You could do a lot of reframing. And I think part of that is removing blame. Or if it helps, say, I did this, it's fine. I did this, I made this mistake. You doing things does not make you inherently a bad trainer. It doesn't make you a bad handler. It's just something you did, right? Going a little bit back to the failure talk that we had last week, to be able to fail forward is to go, okay, I made this mistake. This is what I learned from it. This is what I'm going to do next time. I'm going to grab some of the chat comments real quick. Every time I really cared about a runner competition, Louis would run off. He trained me not to care, or else I didn't feel. So that's a mindset thing. If you are focusing on like the clear round or the cue or something like that, it's gonna be hard because you're not focusing on something you can control. You always have to focus on the things you can control, or everything spins out of control. It's kind of counterproductive, or counterintuitive, but it works. Oh God, I wonder all the time if she would have been better with someone else. In the end, I guess it doesn't matter, because if I'm stuck with her, she's stuck with me too. Right. So all I mean is just for like one run, right? Or if you do want to get rid of her, that's fine too. Like, it's fine if she would be happier in someone else's home, whatever. But I think we tend to put too much pressure on ourselves, and some dogs can deal with that and some dogs can't. You can absolutely learn to not put so much pressure on yourself. That will help all dogs. So start there. This is a comment. Feel like I'm not a good match with my dog. I'm not the right handler for her. I've tried so hard to change and be more of what she needs. I surely know a new handler would fix everything, but you don't know if a new handler would fix everything, but it could help. So how important is agility for you and that dog? That's where I would start. And do you feel this way, or, and then have you exhausted your resources? Have you, taken maybe an online private or something? Is there more help and instruction you could be getting to put you two on the same page? Because that's when I first moved to Washington, I saved a lot of agility dogs. Like, there were quite a few people who said I would have quit agility if not for you, because the communication piece was so torn apart on the course. So sometimes it's something simple like that. Simple, I'm air quoting simple. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. But sometimes it's not anything other than you don't know how to talk to each other on the agility course yet. I try to get your mentor's book. No could do. Help. Send me a message and I'll see if I can help you. Or post it on its own thread in the group. So this is my favorite comment. My only goal has become to have fun. Because if you aren't having fun, what are you doing? And it's okay to have, so I feel like we do agility to have fun. We don't do agility because it is fun. Like, it should be fun, or you shouldn't be doing it. I don't know how I want to phrase this, but you're allowed to have goals that require an outcome, but your focus should be on the process and the things that you can control. And absolutely, if you're not having any fun, that needs to change. You have to be able to have fun. All right, back to the stories in the comments. We're going to be here all night. I wish there was check boxes I can check to definitively tell me one way or another. Yes, same. I would also like a checkbox if I should quit or not, though I know that is different for every dog. I struggle with this every time we were playing agility. I feel like I've tried every training strategy to help him, but here we are still unhappy 80% of the time. So if you've tried everything, then give it a break. See if you miss it. That's another thing. Like, if you give yourself a break from agility and you're not if you're relieved, sounds like you should quit agility. If you're not, if you're itching to do agility, I wake up wanting to do agility. I go to sleep wanting to do agility. I have to distract myself from wanting to do agility by doing other things. Okay. If that's not you, try a different sport. And it's okay. We won't judge you. Lena says, this topic is hard but important. Thanks for bringing it up. We are working on anxiety behaviors due to agility environments. Both of us absolutely love agility, but I'm afraid I will have to put him in an environment he can't cope with. even with a lot of training around that specific environment. When is it fair to the dog and when is it not? That's for everyone to decide. I am okay with it unless it's making the dog's life worse. If they can't recover from it, if it takes them more than a day to recover from it, right? Is the good outweighing the bad? And go from there. Caitlin has a dog that does not like 2 or 3 ring trials. We pick the venues for her, and it's always about what she's telling me. I had someone tell me maybe I need to retire her, and it brought you to tears. We were at a place that she used to love, giving it one more shot. I have found that by letting her explore other sports helps her enjoy mine. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there. I work really hard to keep our relationship happy, and that's the goal. Last year, she qualified for AKC Nationals, but it's not a place she wants to go. Do my best to help us as a team, no matter what the sport is. It sounds like, Caitlin, you're in a really good place in your expectations, and that your version of agility can be modified to fit her version of agility. And it sounds, I think that's what most people do. And I think that's great. I love it. It sounds awesome. Dixie says likes agility, but only likes it his way, doesn't like drills, doesn't like anything that requires pressure. This is kind of similar to Caitlin, and going back to the your expectations. Is your version of agility, can you modify it to fit this dog? And if so, great. And if not, then that dog doesn't have to do it. Helen has 2 dogs who are not as in love with agility as she is. The first would rather be in rally, and the second would much rather chase a disc. I still train them in agility, and now I'm stuck training so many sports in a week that I would become the jack of all trades and master of none. So now you get to decide, Helen, that is it enough for you? Like, or would you rather spend more time doing agility because that's a sport you really enjoy? Or do you want to put more of your time into one of these other sports, rally or disc? We're on that track now of whose expectations do we need to change, and do we want to change them? I'm stuck in my ways. This is what my version of agility is, and if the dog fits into that, super. If not, then we'll just not compete. Things like that. That's my rule. Everyone will have their own version of that. Diane wants to know how to interpret off days when they are intermittent, and when does the scale tip? So this happens a lot too. I think my best go at it is to try and collect some data. Like, is there something that you can pinpoint the off days on? Is it a time of year? Is it a location? Is it the time of day? Is it after so many days in a row of competing? Things like that. But intermittent off days, every dog should, like, we're all allowed to have bad days. What I would look into, though, is if it's consistent enough for you to notice it. Is there something going on that we can't see on the surface? Is a little bit what I'm wondering about. And also, if it shows up, is there a certain amount, like if they're having an off day, do you just leave? That's a little bit of this, how much are you willing to take under, like if you know that a good day they're at a level 10, this is great. And then you get to the show and they're at a 6 and they're still willing to compete at a 6 and they're still like kind of doing it. Or do you want to compete with them at a 6, or would you rather go home? That's a question to ask yourself. I'm going to grab the comments. Realized over the past year how much I do not miss the trials, and now so passionate about the training, workshop, seminars. Oops, I missed a lot of comments. Of course it's okay to like be frustrated and have not fun moments. That's going to be part of it. But if your training is consistently leaving you frustrated, then something has to change. Trusting the process, sure, to an extent. I just became super aware that if I can't train at least a couple of minutes of agility every day, I get super cranky. Well, there you go. That's kind of me. Need agility. I think it's also easier to make a decision if you have a younger dog you're getting ready to trial. It will still be hard, but I think in the long run we'll both be happier just playing agility in the yard and popping in the occasional class. Yeah, it's that's, I know, I think it I definitely think it can be easier. I think it was asked on one of the threads, like, how many dogs is too many dogs? But I don't know. For me, 6. Everyone's answer to that is going to be different. But if you can get another dog, get another dog. There's this meme that says, that's like, train the dog you have versus getting another one. And I'm like, the one you have doesn't work for you and your life and what you want to do, and you can get another one. That's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. There are a lot more comments, you guys. So I'm gonna grab like 1 or 2 more, and if we have to just do this again, we will. Allie says, how do you know if it's your training or if the dog just isn't interested? What is the balance between increasing motivation and just recognizing the dog is kind of meh about the sport? For instance, my dog is confident, perfectly adaptable to competition, but you can tell he's not enthusiastic about the activity itself, whether at home or in class setting. Specifically thinking of how he responds to agility and nose work versus field training. This is a good question. Because a dog may not have the same, like it might be enjoying it, but it's like it's just a meh thing. And if you're okay with that level of enthusiasm and competing with that level of enthusiasm, I think you're not doing any harm. Let's go back to the original thing, is competition making this dog's life worse? It may be that you don't put as much time and effort into those sports that he's a little bit meh about. But if it's not making their life worse, I think it's okay. This is, and you get to decide what worse is, if it's psychological or physical or any of those things. So complicated, not easy. My training does not frustrate me. I find the dog and I both enjoy it, but the shutdown at trials worse now after. Okay, so it seems like we do have to talk a little bit about this shutting down and competition type thing and what it is. And because there's a lot of I'm probably going to just wrap this up on this point. We can continue it another day. but a lot of people want to train agility more to fix shutting down in competition. And a lot of times that's not the answer. A lot of times it needs to be training. Like there's other training that needs to be done. If the dog is brilliant at everything in class and your trial problems aren't showing up in training, they're likely not agility problems. They're likely problems related to pressure, noise, other people, other dogs, distractions in general, maybe food, maybe the reinforcers being off of your body. There's so many other elements of competition that your dog might not be prepared for, that it has nothing to do with the sport. You might experience the same thing in the next sport that you try. So that's the best way I can explain it, is if your competition problems aren't ever showing up anywhere else, we need to look outside of your competition behaviors. All right. None of this is easy. You're going to have to do some experimenting. You're going to have to decide what your version of, if we're talking about agility, what your version of agility looks like, and if your expectations can be changed to fit the dog's personality. So, and then decide, is this a problem with the sport, or is this a problem with competition? They're two different things. So in Shock's example, she would melt down in many sports because she would probably do okay in nose work. It's pretty quiet, but she would be great at flyball too, except she wouldn't be able to deal with all the noise, right? She would do well in dock diving too, but she would not do well with the noise. So all the agility training in the world won't solve her problem. Shrek, all the agility training in the world will help part of his problem, because the more value he finds in the obstacles, the more he'll be able to tune out some of his distractions. It's not going to replace some of the anxiety he has over visiting people and other dogs. And it's not going to replace some of the anxiety he has about his reinforcers and where they are coming from. But I can train those things separately. So I often train those skills away from agility. So a lot of my ring prep work, I'm using obedience to get it really solid, and then I will apply it to agility and see how that goes. But that we need to continue this conversation, I think. So any last minute quick questions? But I'm going to wrap this up. I know I didn't get to everyone's, so I'll probably do some just text replying as well. But let me know what you thought of this. Is it helpful at all? Did I just say everything's fine a lot and make you feel better about your issues? Oh, seriously, Sheila? Next week we're talking about ring prep training. Well, there you go. I knew what I was doing. So next week, we'll talk a little bit about ring prep. So maybe we can continue the conversation surrounding those pressures of competition. Because ring prep is really the only thing I'm working on with Shrek right now. So let's do it. All right. I will see you all next week. I'll answer a few more of your questions and things about this topic in the group. And if you have more things that come up, just post them in the group. So I'll see you guys then. Did the video ever show up for you guys? Sounds like it didn't. That's okay. I'm just so curious to see if it will show up in the recording. All right. As you think, if you have more questions, more thoughts, more ideas, just pop them into the group, and we'll keep the conversation going, because I think this is really important. Okay. Yeah. No video. That's all right. It's fine. Like I said, the pink and purple blobs are probably superior to my look today, so it's all good. All right, I will see you guys next week. Talk about ring prep.